And a lot of the conversation on your Capital Markets Day has really been around the Guinea investment of Simandou, right? Tell us, at this point in the commodity cycle, with a project that has had a litany of issues, right? You talk about environmental ownership and a lot of other things. What makes it worthwhile to you? Because cost per tonne is pretty steep too for this project.
Look, it is, of course, expensive to build a new iron ore mine because you also have to build the infrastructure. But it is an iron ore of an exceptional quality, probably the highest quality on the planet, and only basically competes with the iron ore mined in northern Brazil. So it's the kind of ore for the future because a lot of the ore can go straight into a DIR, electric arc furnace process, and therefore you have much less CO2 emission. So it's attractive to get into our portfolio. It's a different quality than what we have in the Pilbara, and we also believe that there's space in the market for this new mine.
With market conditions as they are you confident about the levels of Capex that would be required to continue investing in this project?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's a very good project, and it's well down the road. It's 25 years ago the ore was discovered, and we have recently developed it very well. I was traveling to Guinea just 4 weeks ago and went out with helicopters and saw the good progress we are having. So we are basically at a point of sanction, just subject to final approval by the authorities in China, our Chinese partners.
You do expect that China will hit peak steel consumption sometime soon, so this is not entirely a bet just on China?
No, well, there's a couple of things to say around that. First of all, the rest of the world is growing, and whereas China has been at what you call peak level of steel consumption, you can see that India is now coming up the curve, and they will need much more steel in the future as well. So in aggregate, the world will be growing, and don't forget, any mines they are at some stage running out of iron ore. So you have to keep on investing in new replacement mines just to sustain the level of production. We are the world's largest producer of iron ore, and as you would also have seen, we have just announced today a study of developing the Rhodes Ridge. We need to develop more in the Pilbara, and we are developing Simandou.
Are you looking at other assets at this point?
Not in the iron ore area. We are trying to find a good balance between our leading business of iron ore and also being big in with the Western world's largest producer of aluminium, and we have a strongly growing copper portfolio. So it's a matter of finding a good balanced portfolio that fits the future.
Yeah. What is the future of China to you? Because obviously so much of that voracious appetite for iron ore, for steel, has been on the property market, which is in the process of being delivered. Yes,
look, it's always difficult to talk about an economy for the long term, but of course the track record of the Chinese economy is pretty impressive. And right now, I've just been traveling around in China. I'm quite optimistic in a way. The Chinese economy is growing. You're absolutely right. The property market has its challenges, but then again, China is spending more again on infrastructure, and there are certain industries that are booming. For example, the automotive industry, particularly the electrical vehicles, and that also helps demand.
Yeah, it's a tough juggling act for policymakers, though, right? It's a careful balancing in the deleveraging, but also we're seeing some of that intervention when it comes to steel and iron ore markets. Do you think Beijing can control the price of iron ore?
Look, if you're referring to that China has built the CMR, they are our customers, and we work very well together with them. I saw them recently when I was in China. So far it has worked very well with the establishment of CMR. We are all in for open, transparent markets, and that's what I believe we have for iron ore.
Yeah, you said you were in Beijing, Shanghai just a few weeks ago. You're actually going back to China after this trip. What was the confidence like? What was the atmosphere on the ground?
Look, the confidence is quite good. You sense that the property market has to adjust. But other than that, they're making a lot in China, a lot of initiatives to further opening up. So that is that. No, the sentiment is positive.
Are you hearing from government authorities that there'll be more stimulus next year?
I think they have just announced quite a lot, actually. So we see it, and we have seen the latest announcement. I don't think it's a matter of making a huge stimulus, and that might not be necessary. It looks like the Chinese economy will grow by and large, as they have predicted, around 5%.
We touched on copper just briefly. There's been a lot of issues around supply, First Quantum. What's your kind of take on that situation? Is this a short-term issue?
I think the long-term issue is that the world needs more copper. If we should address climate change, we need to build a new energy system and electrify societies, and that requires a lot of copper. And the challenge with copper is it's not that easy to find the copper and extract the copper. So there is, in any case, a long-term challenge on bringing enough copper to the market. And then, yes, there might be a very short-term issue here with their mine in Panama. I don't know much more than what I read in the newspapers here. I hope the best for Panama and for the company.
Yeah. Let's talk about M&A. It feels like a resurgence of activity and momentum in the space, and some pretty, exciting premiums. Do you see more of that going into next year? Do you see opportunities?
We are not too much into the big M&A because we have a big transformative agenda. There's so much we can improve in the company, and if you do big M&A, your agenda kind of is dictated by the acquisition. But we are actually doing a lot to adjust our portfolio, and as late as earlier this week, we finalized the transaction of going into recyclable aluminium, where we are buying 50% of the Matalco joint venture. And it's not a big acquisition, but it increases our total aluminium volume by 30%, and it means that we are going into recyclable market at scale. So strategically, it's a very important acquisition. And we've done a number of these small things that changes our portfolio and make our portfolio more future-facing.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about future-facing metals. What's your take on the price moves that we're seeing in lithium? We were just talking about EVs, in fact, and your special interest when it comes to some of these makers.
Look, we are building one lithium mine. We are trying to open another one, and we are exploring for lithium. But we tend to look at it a long term. I think it's just fairly given that the lithium price will be very, very volatile. And why? Because sentiments for buying EVs goes up and down. And at some stages, EVs will grow very, very strong, and then there might be a period where it's growing less strong, etc. Plus, I think what we are learning right now is that the market for supply and demand actually works. Producers have been able to bring quite a lot of lithium to market lately because of the high prices, and that means that there might be a little bit of surplus supply. It won't stay forever because we know that the trajectory is a growing trajectory. It's basically you're going to have a 10 times bigger market in 2030 than you had in 2020. So growth will always be there, but market will remain volatile.
Before I let you go, I wanted to know if you sort of had any thoughts about share consolidation, about ditching the dual listing.
No, we really don't have.
That's not on the cards.
No, because it works very well. The majority of our register is in the UK, but we don't have operational business in the UK. Our main operations are here in Australia. So the dual listing actually works for us. There's no easy way out, and the only thing is perhaps a little bit more travel for me, but that works.